Beneath the dappled shade of an ancient mulberry tree lived a caterpillar named Petalus pea green, so small that a dewdrop could drown him, and so cautious that even the wind seemed rash by comparison. He had 12 pairs of shoes fashioned from curled fig leaves, one pair for each foot, and an extra pair in case he ever felt bold enough to grow. They lined the shelf of his burrow like trophies of adventures he never meant to have. Every morning he polished them, thinking perhaps tomorrow I'll try the larger size, only to slip his usual slippers back on an inch no farther than yesterday. Around him stretched the kingdom of Yet, a realm renowned for being precisely what its name suggested, a place that never, ever reached its potential. Cocoon silkers spun only sample threads. Painters sketched merely underdrawings, and poets recited first lines before apologizing for the audacity of continuing. The royal heralds went so far as to announce unfinished decrees, hear ye, henceforth the kingdom shall," and then hurried away red-faced, too afraid of finality to finish. No wonder, then, that the land bristled with half-grown caterpillars who refused cocoons, tadpoles who spurned legs, and nightingales who practiced trills they never sang at night. Their anthem was a whisper. Better than now we know, than the then we don't. Change, to them, was a terrifying cliff face, forever looming and never climbed. Petalus understood their dread. Inside his green body lay the same ticking promise of wings and airy heights. He, too, felt the tug of distant skies, yet the notion of dissolving into chrysalis soup bones unmade, self-remixed, froze him in place. "I should be content with earth," he told the mulberry roots. "Air is unreliable." On the first morning of first bud month, a commotion rippled through the kingdom. The monarch herself, Queen Sinara of the Unvoiced Desires, issued a rare royal plea. All subjects were ordered to gather before her unfinished palace, an architectural half-idea of pillars without roofs and doors that opened into open air. Curious, Petalus dragged each timid inch of himself to the courtyard. Queen Sinara, perched on a dais constructed of raw marble slabs, wearing a crown that still bore quarry markings. Her voice shook like an unsent letter. "My people," she declared, "our world is slipping backward. The fruit trees no longer ripen because they fear completing their task. Rivers will not reach the sea, embarrassed of arriving. Even the sun this morning rose only partway, shy of the apex. We need guidance, someone who can show us how to finish the journey from promise to fulfillment." She raised a parchment. "The oracles advise me to seek a mentor of margins, a creature living between not yet and could be, someone who knows fear's grip but also potential's pull." Her royal eyes scanned the crowd of hunched heads and quivering antennae, stopping on Petalus, who had chosen an unfortunate central spot. "You," she said, pointing at the caterpillar polishing his smallest shoes with a blade of grass, "step forward." Petalus nearly shed every shoe at once. The crowd parted as though he carried contagion. He advanced, or rather advanced, retreated, advanced again, until he faced the queen. "Your name?" she asked. Petalus Peagreen, your majesty." "Are you terrified of metamorphosis?" "Utterly. Do you nevertheless feel its heartbeat inside you?" "I fear so, yes." "Then you are precisely what we need," Sinara proclaimed, ignoring his stammered protest. "Henceforth, you are royal mentor of margins. You will teach us how to take the first brave inch toward transformation." A sigh, half relief, half horror, swept through the onlookers. Someone clapped tentatively, stopped, clapped again, then stuffed their hands in their pockets. Petalus squeaked, "But I haven't transformed myself. I can't even contemplate a cocoon without cold sweats." "That," said the queen, "is why you are perfect. We require someone who fears the journey as much as we do, so we may watch possibility happen in real time." Before he could wriggle away, she commanded the heralds to escort him to the palace library, and just like that, Petalus found himself in a chamber of half-written histories, entrusted to save a kingdom that measured life in pauses. The first night he cried into a curl of parchment, "How can I mentor others when I myself refuse the chrysalis?" The library's glowbugs fluttered above him, their abdomens illuminating worried corners. As tears dried, he noticed a dusty shelf labeled "Instructions for Occasions Unfinished." There rested volumes whose titles were questions. "If one dares, half a step, what then?" And "How to build a ladder you intend to climb someday." He cracked them open. Every page ended mid-sentence. Every diagram halted mid-lie. Yet within each trunket lay an arrow, subtle but present, pointing toward the margin, as though inviting the reader to complete the work. A spark ignited. Petulus quivered, realizing the kingdom lacked not knowledge, but demonstration. They needed proof that progress could begin without certainty of completion, just a single brave inch. He summoned the Council of Artisans the following morning. They arrived reluctantly, spinners with unused cocoons slung over their shoulders, inventors with blueprints missing final gears. Friends, he greeted, voice wobbling but audible, I propose a festival in 3 days, the celebration of the first inch. Each of you will choose a project unfinished and move it forward by precisely one measurable increment, no commitment beyond that. We shall gather to witness and applaud each tiny advance. Potter asked, what if our inch goes wrong? Then you will possess 1 inch more experience than before, Petulus replied, surprising himself. An orchard keeper wondered, must we then proceed to second inches? Not now, the caterpillar assured. Let the future fend for itself. We honor only beginnings. Whispers spread through the kingdom faster than dandelion seeds. Some scoffed, others trembled, but curiosity its own vulnerable hatchling to oak root. Attillus, meanwhile, confronted his personal inch. He visited the mulberry tree and stared at its highest twig, imagining wings, but feeling nausea. 1 inch, he muttered. So he removed his tiniest left rear shoe and replaced it with the slightly larger spare he'd avoided for seasons. The fit felt odd, foreign, almost scandalous. He walked a circle. Nothing catastrophic occurred, though his gait felt lopsided as his courage. He kept the mismatch as a badge. At dawn of festival day, the unfinished palace glittered with half-hung streamers. Everyone had obeyed the rule of single increments. Booths displayed partial progress. A weaver revealed 1 added row of silken tapestry. A musician squeezed 1 fresh bar of melody between notes already known. The air hummed with cautious pride. Queen Sinara opened the proceedings. Let the mentor of margins report his inch. Petillus climbed the dais. Esteemed kingdom, he said, holding up the larger shoe, yesterday I dared an imbalance. The crowd gasped, then laughed nervously but genuinely. 1 foot has grown, someday the other may follow. For now I stand crooked and alive. Applause, hesitant yet audible, fluttered across the courtyard. The cobbler bowed first to the queen, then to himself, and like dominoes tipped by a tremor, townsfolk stepped forward to announce their own inches. A mason laid a single stone upon a half wall. A poet added 1 stanza. The royal architect placed the first proper beam across 2 columns, bridging gap with promise. Something shifted. It was not a thunderclap, more a subtle realignment of air molecules, but every resident felt it. The kingdom of Yet had budged. The day ended bathed in possibility. That night, Petulus returned to the library to catalog festival outcomes. He felt a flutter inside, exhilaration shaped suspiciously like incipient wings. Panic resurfaced. 1 inch at a time, he soothed himself. But biology is a patient conspirator. It advances even when willpower retreats. Over the next fortnight, the Queen instituted weekly inch observances. Progress quickened by increments. The river, inspired by applause from its banks, daringly flowed an extra bend before stopping to reconsider. Apple trees ripened 1 fruit apiece. Villagers tasted sweetness they had only imagined. Moonbeams reached corners previously left dim on purpose. Still, obstacles arose. On the 5th observance, the famed inventor Giric Bold attempted to attach a final cog to his perpetual kettle, but froze mid-mate. Tool in hand, if it works, my life will change, he confessed. If it fails, so will my reputation. Better to suspend the moment. He refused to budge. The crowd looked to Petulus, who trembled anew. Public mentoring felt heavier than private fear. He crawled onto the inventor's work table and addressed both Giric and the assembly. We speak of inches as if they are safe, trivial, yet every small move carries unknown ripples. I will not lie, change may hurt, but stagnation also wounds, only slower. Giric whispered, will you show me how? Despite trembling, Petulus inhaled. Together. Then. He positioned his mismatched feet beside the cog. Giric's fingers guided the metal. Petulus nudged with his head. The cog clicked into place. Steam hissed. The kettle whirred a full rotation for the first time. Cheers erupted, mingled with Giric's tears. The mentor collapsed afterwards, exhausted. Inside, unseen cells were dissolving. He sensed thresholds approaching. At midnight, as torches dimmed and the kingdom dreamed of forward steps, Petulus crept to the mulberry. Silk threads seeped from glands he'd pretended not to have. He longed to scream stop, but even fear sometimes yields to nature. He began spinning, first a loop, then a sheet. weaving himself into seclusion. It felt like betraying his role. How could a caterpillar guide the fearful if he disappeared? Yet he couldn't halt destiny's loom. From within nascent walls he heard footsteps. Queen Sinara and the librarian Moth. Madame Dustwing. Mentor, the queen called softly. Are you all right? Uncertain, came the muffled reply. I may be dissolving. Sinara touched the silk surface. The kingdom still needs you. I need the kingdom. His voice dwindled. Tell them transformation begins with a single brave inch, but continues with surrender to what follows. I trust them now, they must trust themselves. The cocoon hardened, conversation ended. Morning unveiled an empty burrow and a chrysalis swinging under the mulberry. Word spread quickly. Some citizens wept, others felt abandoned. Girick slammed his workshop shut, refusing further progress. Fruit withered half-ripe. The river recoiled to previous shores. Inch observances fell silent. The queen convened an emergency assembly. Our mentor is within metamorphosis, she declared. Holy regressor, honor his teaching, murmurs rose. A potter argued. He preached 1 inch, yet leapt a mile. He left us behind. A shepherd countered. He showed that inches accumulate until flight becomes inevitable. Are we to freeze because he advanced further? Sinara raised her scepter. Petalus entrusted us with continuation. The kingdom of Yet must decide whether to remain yet or become now. Silence lingered until a child's voice pierced it. Little Lysandra, not yet taller than her father's knee, toddled forward holding a painted pebble. I finished this picture, she announced softly. The pebble bore a crude but complete butterfly, wings outspread. She placed it on the dais, turned and toddled back. Something in that simple act shattered the stalemate. The orchard keeper stepped up, offering a basket of fully ripened apples. The poet arrived with a finished poem, 3 stanzas beyond the earlier one. One by one, citizens reclaimed momentum. Queen Sinara proclaimed a new tradition, the Vigil of Becoming. Each evening, they would gather at the mulberry to keep watch over the chrysalis, working on their projects by lantern light until the mentor's emergence. Weeks passed, and the kingdom transformed around the dormant caterpillar. The half-built palace gained roofs, walls, stained glass windows depicting stages of growth. Girick reopened his workshop and invented lamps powered by the perpetual kettle, providing steady light for nighttime crafts. The river reached the sea at last, singing of distance. Even the sun, perhaps catching wind of courage, began to rise full circle again. Every night, villagers recorded achievements on ribbons, tying them to branches surrounding the chrysalis, so Petalus would awaken in a forest of accomplishments. The mulberry looked like a jeweled chandelier, heavy with proof that transformation had rooted. Inside the cocoon, Petalus floated in imaginal silence. Memories surfaced, not as sentences, but as feelings. Fear polishing tiny shoes, applause from mismatched feet, Girick's tear on his antenna. He sensed vibrations of work happening outside, hammer strikes, harvest songs, quill scratches. A warmth blossomed along his spine where wings were weaving themselves. He realized he need not mentor further. The kingdom had become mentor to itself. The thought soothed him through final molts. On the dawn of emergence timed, locals joked, with the first occasion the kingdom's clock actually completed its chime sequence, the chrysalis darkened, cracked, and split. Crowds stood breathless. Out crawled a creature, trembling, wet, but unmistakably winged, not emerald but shimmering with iridescence that caught every hue tied to the branches. Petalus, reborn, gripped the empty shell, pumping hemilymph into crumpled wings. He felt dizzy, lighter than memory. When he tried to speak, only a tiny chirp escaped his mouth. Parts different now, but no words were needed. The spectacle sufficed. Queen Sinara approached, tears shining. Mentor, welcome, he bowed as best a new butterfly can. The crowd erupted in cheers, less for him than for themselves. They saw in his flight the final proof that first inches lead to unimagined horizons. Petalus climbed the warm air, circled above the finished palace, then dipped toward the orchard, tasting sweet fragrance from fully ripened fruit. He landed on a podium where the queen invited him to address the kingdom, using a speaking cone designed by Girick to amplify soft wing vibrations into audible sound. A hush fell. Petalus tested the device. A gentle hum echoed across the courtyard. Citizens of now. His amplified voice fluttered. I left as mentor of margins. I return as pupil of completion. You taught me that my cocoon was not abandonment, but trust that beginnings grow beyond control and that others will press forward when we can't. He paused as wings steadied. Remember, transformation starts small. Sometimes an inch is all courage you possess, but that inch contains infinity. Step it, crawl it, nudge it. Then rest, watch the world reshape, and when the next inch calls, answer. He clicked his new forelegs together, an accidental gesture that sounded like applause and triggered genuine applause from everyone present. Banners unfurled atop the palace, reading in bold finished ink, a single brave ink. In months that followed, the kingdom prospered like a garden after drought. The phrase, let's inch it, entered daily speech. Schools taught the history of hesitation and how it ended. Travelers arrived from distant lands to witness a society that progressed by micro-courage. They found complete bridges, full verses, baked breads, and yes, butterflies weaving through open courtyards. As for Petalus, he never forgot his leaf shoe days. Sometimes he perched on the mulberry and told hatchlings about fear's smothering comfort. He described polishing shoes instead of moving, and the first time he dared one size bigger, the young caterpillars listened, wide-eyed, not because they needed to overcome metamorphosis, they took flight for granted now, but to understand the miracle embedded in each small choice. When you're scared, he concluded, measure progress in breaths, heartbeats, inches. Do that, and one morning you'll wake to wings that remember every humble crawl. On an autumn afternoon, Queen Sinara invited him for tea in the palace garden. She said, our archives credit you with saving the kingdom, yet you were gone half the time. Petalus sipped nectar. A mentor's job is not to drag others across the threshold, but to crack the door and show light. You all walked through. Even so, we owe you gratitude. Then promise me this, if ever stagnation returns, and it will, wearing new disguises, recall the festival of first inches. Celebrate small beginnings, the rest takes care of itself. The queen nodded, eyes reflecting wings overhead. Agreed. As twilight painted the sky, Petalus joined a murmuration of butterflies heading toward distant meadows. He glanced back at the kingdom of Yetno, now its towers topped, rivers complete, and laughter rising with chimney smoke. With a final dip of his wings, he vanished into the horizon. Back in the mulberry shade, a child discovered the mentor's first mismatched leaf shoe. Preserved beneath glass. She read the plaque. Transformation began here. She smiled, slipped off her sandals, and tried the leaf on her thumb, giggling at its absurdity. Then she ventured one playful inch forward, because that is where every journey worth taking still begins.